Unexplainable horrors exposed. Sinister secrets lurk in America's haunted deep woods. The darkness of the Appalachian woods held secrets beyond comprehension. Jenna's peaceful life shattered when her husband vanished during a late-night fishing trip. The silence in the house was deafening, broken only by the quiet whispers in town. She must know something, they said, their uneasy glances cutting through her skin like shards of glass. Bills piled up, and with 2 young kids depending on her, Jenna felt the weight of the world pressing down. The local sheriff, once a figure of protection, now stood looming like a shadow cast from nightmares. Shadows that were far too long as stories of sinister forces whispered through the town. At the playground, she found them. Cryptic notes stuffed under the slides, scrawled with symbols so ancient and grotesque it sent chills down her spine. Dismissing them as a prank wasn't easy, but it was easier than accepting what her gut insisted. For too long, she ignored those signs. But when her son, Ethan, darted toward the woods without a glance back, the air thickened, constricting around her throat. Panic surged, and her heart raced with a singular thought. She must find him. Each step into the woods wrapped her in an oppressive silence, the only sounds the crunch of leaves beneath her frantic feet. Gnarled trees twisted like grotesque guardians, casting shadows that shifted with the creeping fog. Suddenly, the comfort of her childhood memories twisted into a labyrinth of fears. As if the forest itself had awakened, it whispered secrets of those who walked before her, who were swallowed whole by the darkness. Grotesque carvings marred the bark as if they were warnings etched in desperation, frozen screams hidden by centuries of foliage. In moments of breathless horror, Jenna stumbled upon faded flyers of missing children. They mirrored Ethan's face like a macabre display of time, and her heart plummeted. Back home, her neighbors wore masks of concern that slipped to reveal glances steeped in suspicion. The sheriff simply shrugged when she frantically recounted Ethan's disappearance, brushing her off with a wave of disbelief. The world swirled in chaos around her mounting bills, with a community that once felt like home turning into an eerie gallery of haunted faces. Something stirred in the undercurrents, a primal force buried beneath layers of history, a truth that needed to remain forgotten. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a sudden jolt of electricity coursing through her veins, Jenna pulled a crinkled map from behind a loose floorboard. It felt oddly alive in her hands, beckoning her deeper into the forest. Shadowy paths twisted and turned, leading toward a darkness born of gut-wrenching dread. Almost by instinct, she began to follow the route drawn, heart pounding louder than the whispers of the woods. Just as she steeled herself to venture into that mouth of darkness, the unmistakable sound of Ethan's voice soared through the thin wall, separating their rooms. Panicked, pleading. Frozen in disbelief, Jenna hesitated. Was it real, or was the forest simply playing tricks on her? Beneath that blanket of night, she sensed shadows watching and waiting, secrets breathing hard just beyond the tree line. She could no longer ignore the truth calling her name, a truth darker and more chilling than the woodlands could reveal. And as the message on her phone lit up with a new note, a horrifying truth clawed at the edges of her mind, priming her for the terror that awaited in the depths of the unforgiving woods. The map trembled in Jenna's hands, thick with the weight of unknown horrors. Ethan's distant voice echoed in her ears, drowning out rational thought. She felt the pull of the map, a magnetic force as if it were the very thing guiding her into the heart of darkness. Can I trust it? Could it lead to him? With one last glance at her home, the familiar shadows now twisted and strange, Jenna stepped deeper into the woods. The air thickened, heavy with moisture and a lingering dampness that clung to her skin like a second layer. Branches clawed at her, eager to tear her clothes and skin, aggressive reminders that she was not welcome. The forest breathed around her, each rustle of leaves a whisper of warnings she'd ignored. Ethan, she called, voice trembling on the verge of breaking. No response, only silence, the the kind that gnawed at her insides, turning hope into despair. Time bent. Seconds turned to minutes. The shadows around her lengthened, twisting in sinister shapes as the fading light grew dimmer. She moved cautiously, matching her pace to the rhythmic thudding of her heart. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught her eye. Jenna froze, instinct urging her to run. But she forced herself to stay still, breathing shallow as a figure passed by, barely distinct behind the thicket. It was just a flash, could have been a deer, or maybe something worse. A chill raced down her spine as she recalled the missing children. They could be anywhere in these woods, lurking, watching. Ahead, the path forked. Jenna felt the heaviness of dread rooting her to the spot. One path appeared gnarled and dark, an uncanny stillness enveloping it like a veil. The other looked slightly clearer, faint moonlight shimmering through the branches. Instinct screamed against both choices. Maybe she should return. Maybe she was walking in circles, driven by madness. But the echoes of Ethan's cries seemed to weave through the foliage, urging her on. Choosing the lighter path, Jenna pressed forward. The deeper she ventured, the more grotesque carvings stared back at her from the trees, their faces contorted in unfathomable anguish. She turned away, swallowing hard, her pulse racing. Each step felt heavier than the last. The air grew thick with something putrid, something ancient that remembered. Then, a soft whimper. Not far off. Her breath hitched as she recognized the sound, a desperate, childlike plea that ignited every protective instinct within her. Ethan. The name ripped from her throat as she sprinted toward the sound. The underbrush fought against her legs as if trying to restrain her, but she wouldn't stop now. Bursting into a small clearing, she froze at the sight before her. There on the ground, surrounded by twisted roots, lay a charred wooden doll, its features melted and misshapen, staring up at her with empty eyes. It was the same doll Ethan had played with at home, the one she thought was lost forever. Her stomach twisted. Fear took hold, clawing deeper into her insides. A rustling behind her. Jenna turned just in time to see movement in the shadows, dark shapes converging, eyes glinting like embers in the night. Panic surged through her, her breath quickening as she backed away. Where was Ethan? What had the woods done to him? With each step back, the shapes moved closer. She could feel their presence, a host of whispers brushing against her skin, tinged with malice. It struck her. She was not alone. Something sinister was lurking, hungry, and she'd only just touched the surface of the horrors buried here. Barely thinking, Jenna sprinted back the way she came. The sounds of whispers grew, a cacophony that threatened to swallow her whole. As she turned to look over her shoulder, the forest seemed to warp, shadows twisting into malignant forms that reached for her. The path ahead twisted, veering into darkness again. But where did it lead? Would it be another trap? The whispers beckoned louder, a relentless chant of her name, tightening around her like a noose. Desperation clawed at her throat as she plunged into the depths, fleeing from an unseen terror that pursued her. She didn't know where to run. Her mind was a tumult of confusion. The forest had secrets, unraveling them felt like stepping into madness, but there was one thing she had to find out first. What had become of Ethan? And then, as she rounded a bend, she caught a glimpse of an unnatural glow ahead. A gathering faces half formed in the shadows, their eyes glinting with hunger. She gasped, paralyzed by a sickening dread. Where was she headed? What awaited her in that glimmering light? That truth was about to surface, and she feared what it might reveal. The glow intensified as Jenna stumbled closer, each step laced with a raw, pulsing anxiety. The silhouettes in the light shifted, and she felt those hungry eyes boring into her, liquid darkness swirling around them. The whispers twisted into something more coherent, a chant echoing off the trees, merging with the dark energy that enveloped her. Jenna, come join us, her heart pounded. She squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, fighting the urge to turn and flee. The frantic thumping in her chest matched the rhythmic chant. Surely, this was a trick, some morbid game played by the very shadows that had tormented her. Ethan, she called again, desperation clear in her voice. I'm coming for you. The glow flickered, barely illuminating a clearing filled with grotesque figures, their mouths stretched into nightmarish grins, fingers elongated and clawed as they beckoned her closer. They were no longer mere shadows. They had substance, flesh, a twisted mockery of humanity. The sight sent a fresh wave of terror coursing through her veins. Help! The plea escaped her lips, a raw, instinctual cry. The shadows shivered, their voices rising to a fever pitch as if invigorated by her fear. With every word, the glowing light pulsed, twisting her surroundings, warping reality. Come, child, it's time for the ceremony. Jenna's instincts screamed at her to run, but the darkness felt tangible, wrapping around her like a vice. She took a panicked step back, half-turning. The bodies in the glow reacted, their laughter sharp and searing. Leave. One voice hissed, almost a cackle. You cannot leave. You are part of this now. The ground beneath her feet shuddered. Roots crept up, coiling around her ankles like serpents. She jerked, attempting to break free without success. The laughter intensified, and she felt the wild dread flower in her chest, blooming with the sensation of being ensnared, caught in a web of twisted fate. Then, amidst the chaos of laughter, a familiar voice broke through. Jenna. It was faint, a whisper carried by the wind, but authentic. Ethan. With renewed urgency, she sought the source of that precious sound. The grotesque figures shrieked at the name, a twisted chorus shrilling like rusty nails scraping against metal. Agony etched on their features, they lunged toward her, desperate to pull her into their disturbing embrace. Driven by the echo of her brother's voice, Jenna kicked hard, breaking the root's grip for just a moment. She darted toward the light that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, navigating the madness. Her feet clawed at the soil as she stumbled into the heart of the glowed eye in the center of the clearing. She saw a grotesque altar. The remnants of faded promises lingered, smeared with something dark and viscous. On the altar lay a small figure still, unmoving. Her heart dropped. Ethan. Please, he was there, but not in the way she had hoped. The glow brightened around him while the shadows grew fainter, as if the light itself was a barrier holding back the horrors. But at that moment, his eyes snapped open. They weren't the same brilliant blue she remembered. They were clouded and hollowed. He raised a hand toward her, mouth opening, but no words escaped. A sharp edge of terror sliced through her as she realized whatever had taken root in this dark corner of the woods had found him too. Ethan, we have to go? We can leave. But as she cried out, the ground shook again, and the shadows writhed, coiling back toward the altar, hissing, No, you cannot take him. He is ours. Fractured laughter echoed, and the barriers of light flickered again. In that moment, Jenna knew she wasn't just fighting for her brother, she was battling for their very souls. The reality shattered around her, ripped between the fading light and the advancing shadows. What would she sacrifice to save Ethan? And then, the chant surged, transforming into a deafening roar, making her stomach churn. Join us, Jenna. They pressed closer, and Jenna's breath quickened, the panic reaching a boiling point. The flicker of light dimmed again, and she felt a terrible pull toward the altar. Could she break this dark hold before it consumed them both? Jenna's breath quickened as the tendrils of darkness reached for her. Every instinct screamed to escape, to run back into the safety of the world she once knew. But there was Ethan, lying on that altar, and she could feel the weight of his presence pressing down on her soul. Ethan, she cried out, desperation clawing at her throat. She could see the confusion etched on his face, the darkness eclipsing the spark of recognition. It was as if he was trapped in a nightmare, bound by forces she couldn't begin to comprehend. Join us, join us. The grotesque voices echoed from the shadows, a cacophony of hissing and laughter. Each word twisted into a sharp spear that thrust deeper into her heart. Their hunger was palpable, a festering wound that opened with every chant. Jenna's resolve hardened, anchoring her in the rising tide of dread. She hadn't come this far to give in now. Using every ounce of strength, she lunged toward the altar, breaking the fragile hold of fear that clamped around her. But just as she reached Ethan, a wave of shadow erupted from the ground, pushing her back with a force that knocked the wind from her lungs. No, she gasped, scrambling to her feet as the shadows surged forward, clawing for her. The grotesque figures jostled for her attention, their grotesque features twisted, eyes glowing like dying embers. In their midst, a leader emerged, more monstrous than the rest, its skin a sickly green, with a mouth that opened wide, revealing rows of teeth that could shred bone. "Join us, Jenna," it screeched, voice raw and filled with malice. Suddenly, it lunged toward her, and Jenna felt the world tilt as she dodged, narrowly escaping its grasp. Fear gripped her heart, but it was the sight of Ethan's vacant eyes that rooted her. She couldn't abandon him. "You're stronger than this," she shouted, her voice a lifeline against the encroaching darkness. "Fight it, Ethan, fight!" But the shadows twisted, scrambling over one another, drawing tighter around her, cloaking her in their overwhelming presence. "You'll never leave," they hissed, their voices intoxicating with power. The brightness of the altar began to fade, swallowed by shadow as a deep rumble vibrated through the air. "No!" she screamed, panic surging once again. The glowing light flickered, pulsing erratically as Jenna fought against the overwhelming force drawing her in. She felt her limbs growing leaden, her willpower slipping like sand through her fingers. Suddenly, another voice pierced through the madness, strong, commanding. "Jenna!" It was unmistakably her brother's voice, yet layered with an eerie resonance. The shadows recoiled slightly, their frenzied dance halting for just a moment. "Ethan," she gasped, grasping at the flickering memories of their childhood. "You have to fight. Remember who you are?" He blinked slowly, his eyes momentarily clearing, revealing flickers of recognition. "Jenna?" The voice was warm, yet tinged with a haunting chill. The shadows shifted with anger, seething at the interruption. But then, the moment passed. Ethan's eyes clouded over once more, and the chant rose louder, threatening to crush her spirit beneath its weight. "Join us." With an iron will, Jenna took a deep breath and reached out toward the altar, feeling the warmth of its light against her palm. "I want to let you take him." A surge of adrenaline coursed through her, a desperate plea becoming a rallying cry. Yet the darkness roared back, bodies writhing, desperate for their prey. They lunged toward her, the overwhelming force nearly swallowing her whole. "No, no." As she pushed against the tide, she felt the ground tremble again, a violent shudder that threatened to open the earth beneath her feet. In that instant, the altar exploded in a blinding flash of light, filling the clearing with scorching brilliance. Amidst the chaos, Jenna could sense something shifting. Would the darkness consume her and Ethan? Or would she find a way to break its hold? Everything hung in limbo. She had to choose. In that moment of choice, shadows and light collided, the air thickening like fog, cloaking the clearing in uncertainty. What would happen when the dust settled? Jenna braced herself for the inevitable clash, wondering if she would get back her brother or lose everything to the encroaching dark. Light rushed through the clearing, washing over Jenna as she fought to comprehend the intensity of the moment. Blinding, it consumed everything, forcing the grotesque figures back for a split second. That flicker of hope surged within her. Could it be? Was there a way out? But it was fleeting. Shadows slithered back, eager to claim what they had lost. The visceral stench of decay filled the air, and dark laughter echoed, mocking her fragile hope. "You think you can escape?" "No," Jenna shouted, focusing on the altar. Its bright glow was shrinking, dimming under the relentless surge of darkness. She had to act. She clawed her way forward, willing her legs to carry her closer to Ethan. "Ethan," she called again. His eyes were trapped behind a veil of shadows, but his name was her anchor. "Fight it." Suddenly, the air thickened, alive with energy, sparkles of electricity racing up her arms. The ground rumbled dangerously, a low growl beneath her feet that blended with the horrific chants rising anew. "Join us. Be one with the dark." With every syllable, Jenna felt her resolve weaken. It twisted in her heart like a knife, and she stumbled. The shadows lunged at her. Panic clawed at her throat. She was teetering on the edge of despair. Then, like a light piercing through the dark, a single thought surged. This power, this darkness, was fed by fear. She felt it thrumming within her, waiting. She had to counter it. She had to harness whatever lay inside her. The memories of joy, laughter, and love flickered in her mind. "No," she screamed with a force she couldn't have known she possessed, unleashing her defiance into the void. "You want to win." The shadow beast hesitated, recoiling from her sound. "You're foolish. You cannot fight us." But Jenna pressed on. "I'm not fighting you. I'm fighting for him. For us." The words burst from her, empowering, They seemed to coil around her, twisting into a blade against the dark. The figures stiffened, a thin line of light piercing through the gathering shadows. It stung their monstrous forms, illuminating the grotesque features that had haunted her nightmares. A harsh brightness erupted from the altar, forcing the shadows back once more. "Ethan!" she yelled, the light pulsing brightly, flowing over her like a river of warmth. There was a shift in the air, a crack that splintered the darkness around her. Just as she reached out, reaching for his limp form, the otherworldly leader screeched. The very ground trembled, fissuring beneath their feet, as if the earth itself was torn between worlds. "You cannot take him. He is ours." A blinding flash enveloped the altar, casting intricate patterns of light over the clearing, and Jenna felt something strange coursing through her. A connection. Would she take Ethan? Or would the shadows consume him whole? Then, silence. A strange calm settled over everything, almost too oppressive. She looked around and saw the shadows stilled, coiled like snakes, waiting for the first move from her. Jenna's heart thundered. She could feel the weight of the darkness, but now it was different. It wasn't just a palpable dread, it was a whisper, familiar and threatening, promising her safety if she gave in. "Ethan," she whispered, glancing again at his lifeless body. "I want to leave you." But as she stepped closer, the shadows surged again, propelled by fury and desperation. Jenna felt the world around her begin to collapse. "Jenna, trust us," they hissed, voices fluttering like moths in her mind. "You can be free." Furious, she refused. Never. Yet doubt began to cripple her resolve, and she could feel the shadows prodding at her thoughts, looking for cracks. She pressed onward, but what would remain of her soul in the balance? With one last desperate lunge, she gripped Ethan's hand, her heart hammering. "Wake up. Fight us back." But at that moment, the ground erupted beneath her once more, tossing her into the air as darkness swallowed everything. Fighting for her brother, Jenna could only scream. Was it hope or despair that would hold sway in this final struggle? As she fell into uncertainty, a new voice echoed through the din, familiar but tainted. "Sister, please, it's time to join us." And in that terrifying instant, Jenna faced a choice that would determine their fate. Would she embrace the dark whispers, or would she turn them away one last time? The air crackled with tension, silence hung heavily, and then everything plunged into chaos. What would emerge from the void? Jenna's world exploded into a kaleidoscope of black and white. The ground cracked beneath her, a dark chasm threatening to swallow her whole. Maddened shadows moved as if nothing could hold them back, a swirling mass that knocked the wind from her lungs. She gasped, reaching for Ethan, desperately pulling him closer to the light, but the shadows clawed at her, tugging her away with icy fingers. "Join us." A chorus of whispers slithered into her mind, so soothing and yet so horrifying, each voice a familiar touch, wrapped in comfort and danger. "Let us show you the truth, Jenna. Embrace the darkness." "No," Jenna screamed, her voice lost amid the chaos. She gripped Ethan's hand tighter, feeling his pulse beneath her touch. It was weak, but it was there. She couldn't give up. Not now. Not ever. Yet doubt crept in like fog through the trees, heavy and stifling. The chilling truth settled over her like a shroud. Was Ethan truly lost? Could she bring him back? With every tick of the clock, they were losing precious seconds, and she felt time slipping like sand through her fingers. The shadows began to writhe, morphing into grotesque figures once more. Faces emerged from the darkness, familiar faces, twisted in agony and mockery. Friends, lost souls, and family. They loomed over her, taunting. "Swallow your fear, Jenna. Find peace with us. Where you belong, get away from me," she yelled, swatting at the dark figures as they lunged closer. The shadows shrieked with laughter, their voices unintelligible, merging into one cacophony of chaos. In that moment of desperation, she remembered the face of her mother, the warmth of her touch, the promise she had made to always protect those she loved. Jenna's heart surged with overwhelming power. This was not just about her or Ethan. This was about a legacy of strength, defiance, and love against the encroaching dark. "No." Her scream vibrated through the clearing, and another wave of blinding light surged from the altar, seeming to answer her call. It lashed out at the monstrous figures, pushing them back, but the darkness howled in response, fierce and vengeful. "We will not give him up, Jenna," echoed the leader, its shape darkening the very air around her. "The more you resist, the more it hurts. Fighting is futile." But Jenna felt the shift. The darkness was trembling, not in confidence but fear. The light grew, her emotions fueling it. "I will fight for him. I will fight for every soul you've stolen." As she felt the energy grow inside her, the ultimate confrontation drew near. She stood her ground, heart racing, eyes locked onto Ethan's unmoving figure. "Wake up, Ethan. Fight them. You're stronger than this." For a heartbeat, silence reigned again. The shadows seethed like angry smoke, writhing desperately under the brilliance of her defiance. It was a moment, just a moment, when she thought she saw it. The flicker of his eyes, the twitch of his fingers. "Jenna?" A voice, faint but there. Her heart rose, but before she could call out to him, the ground shook violently, pulling her into the abyss of darkness like a whirlpool. "Join us, Jenna." The shadows hissed again, their breath a cold wind against her skin, a promise of power, freedom, and release. "Together, the darkness will bring you both peace." But just then, a brilliant flash ignited the night again, brighter than before. It illuminated an inscription at the altar, a symbol too faint for her to read in the chaos. There was a truth buried beneath it all, and it called to her. Confusion and rage erupted. She had to make a choice. Would she seek the meaning behind the light, or would she allow the shadows to claim Ethan? "Help me." A pained cry pierced through the chaos, and Jenna's heart twisted in response. "Jenna, don't leave me." The shadows stirred, and she felt their hunger growing. Would she sacrifice everything to save him? The light flickered. Darkness swirled dangerously close. The whispers intensified, a rush of promises ringing in her ears. As Jenna's resolve solidified, she lunged toward the altar, driven by a surge of fierce determination. But could she wrestle back what they had lost before the shadows swept them beyond reach? The answer hung in the air, thick with tension. Would Jenna pay the ultimate price to save her brother, or would she succumb to the shadows' siren call? Jenna plunged toward the altar, the ground quaking beneath her. Every step felt like a fight against time, the shadows clawing and gnashing, desperate to drag her back down. The hairs on her arms stood up, a chilling sensation creeping into her bones. The oppressive darkness surrounded her like a heavy fog, a suffocating embrace that threatened to swallow her whole. "Ethan," she cried, her voice raw, breaking through the rustling whispers that grew louder, more aggressive. Each refrain clawed at her resolve, taunting her. "Join us, Jenna. Leave behind the pain. Let the darkness fill you." Desperation tightened her throat, fear gnawed at her gut. She reached for the inscription illuminated by the flickering light. Ancient runes danced in her vision, whispers of forgotten truths echoing in her mind. But the shadows pulsed, alive, a living extension of their malevolence, hungry for her surrender. The altar emitted a rhythmic pulse, vibrant and warm, beating in time with her heart. She focused on the energy, visualizing it forming a barrier that could push back the shadows. With each breath, she generated warmth that stacked against the chill creeping in, pushing back. "You're not taking him." Jenna's voice echoed against the dark, strong with a determination she hardly felt. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing the light momentarily. Shadows swirled angrily, wrapping around her like snakes, squeezing the breath from her lungs. She gasped, fighting against their grasp, willing herself to remain upright. "Ethan, please. I'm here." A flicker of movement caught her eye. A shape materialized through the swirling mass. Was it him? Ethan's face emerged, twisted and pale, hauntingly familiar, yet frighteningly wrong. His eyes were wide, reflecting unwanted anguish and fear. "Jenna, don't never," she shouted, cutting him off, panic flooding her voice. The shadows howled, anger bubbling in their incessant whispers. "Fight it." His lips moved, but the only sound that reached her was the echo of the dark chorus. "Join us now." Jenna surged forward, determined. She could feel energy flowing through her, the warmth compelling she had summoned becoming a wild flame, illuminating the shadows one desperate inch at a time. But then, another face emerged. Her mother, eyes filled with an unforgiving darkness. Jenna, the voice a haunting echo, tender but twisted, begging for obedience. You can be with us. Don't fight it, we can be together again. No. Anguish twisted in her chest, like a dagger driven through her heart. Jenna clenched her fist, summoning the power of every good memory, every laugh shared, every promise woven. Negativity and despair slashed at her consciousness, yet she held on tight, feeling the warmth crease through her, a lifeline amidst the chaos. Your memories won't save you. The disembodied voice of the leader snarled. You're just prolonging this. Embrace the eternal now. Join us. With desperation bearing down on her like a weight, Jenna knelt before the altar, hands trembling as they reached toward the glowing inscription. It pulsed with a life of its own, each beat resonating deeper than the last. A familiar warmth enveloped her fingers, a recognition that felt ancient. The shadows recoiled as she pressed her palm to the inscription, insight flickering through her mind. It was a seal. A bond broken long ago, and she was meant to recreate it. A scream echoed through the clearing, piercing and primal. Jenna's heart raced. Was it her own? Ethan's? Or something darker and more sinister? Suddenly, darkness snapped around her like a whip, sinking into her skin as the inscription flared violently, casting shadows across the grove. Jenna's breath caught, skin crawling. The shadows weren't just whispering, they were converging. Jenna, the truth of voice broke through the shrieks, soft but chillingly familiar. It was Ethan, or at least the ghost of what he once was. You have to see, you have to believe. In that moment of turmoil and decision, realization cascaded down like ice. Could the truth unlock what was necessary to seal the darkness away? Was she strong enough to face it? The world around her spun a vortex of light and shadow. Uncertainty flooded her as doubt threatened to pull her under. Would her courage be enough, or was she destined to join the shadows, intertwining in their eternal torment? And among it all, a figure began to emerge from the shadows, their purpose as shrouded in darkness as their form. Welcome back, Jenna, it hissed, mirth and malice intertwined in its voice. You wanted the truth, and now you will see it all. Her heart thundered in her chest. As Jenna faced the growing figure, she knew she would have to confront every fear, every darkness hiding deep within, to pull Ethan back from the brink of despair. But would revealing the truth cut her deeper than any shadow, or would it light the way to salvation? What lay ahead was uncertain, but the awakening of hidden horrors was about to begin. The figure materialized beneath the storm of shadows, grotesque features twisting in the half-light. Jenna squinted, dread pooling inside her like lead. The air thickened, the dark whispers growing louder, tightening their grip around her throat. You think you can save him? The creature sneered, its voice slithering through the air like fog. It was impossible to tell if it was a man or something far worse, but its eyes glimmered with malicious intent. You're not strong enough to face the truth. Ethan's silhouette quaked at the edge of the shadows, hinting at his struggle. Fear and desperation carved lines into his face. Jenna, get out. It's too late for me. His voice broke, cracking like ice under pressure, but she couldn't just abandon him. Stop it, she screamed, fighting against the encroaching darkness, forcing her legs to move forward, toward the altar. Each step felt like sinking into quicksand, yet she pressed on, fueled by love and anger. Memories of laughter and joy surged within her, a fire ignited in the encroaching cold. I want to let you take him. The creature chuckled, the sound tearing through the chaos surrounding them. Oh, sweet Jenna. It's already begun. The shadows are alive, and they feed on denial and regret just like you. Cold sweat trickled down her back as she grappled with her fears. Was this a manifestation of her own buried secrets? Did the darkness only reflect her inner turmoil? As she reached the altar, the inscription glowed brighter, illuminating her trembling hands. She felt its energy pulsing through her like a heartbeat, calling her to connect, urging her to accept the truth. I'll confront it, she shouted defiantly, though uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. You can't manipulate me. Then see for yourself. The creature hissed, swiping a hand through the air like a dark wind. Shadows writhed in response, morphing quickly into scenes of her past, the treacherous moments she had buried deep. Images flooded her mind, her mother's disappointed gaze, Ethan's face twisted in pain during their last argument, the day she turned away from everything she loved out of fear, pushing them into the dark. As each memory exploded around her, Jenna felt the weight of her shame pressing down on her chest, almost suffocating. No, that's not what I embrace the truth, Jenna. The figure roared, and suddenly the shadows coiled tighter, squeezing until her breath turned into a wheeze. But in the midst of her struggle, a small light flickered within her, igniting a fierce hope. She remembered Ethan's laughter, the way he had always reached for her hand when she was lost in darkness. I have to believe, she gasped, pulling from the depths of her spirit. With a surge of will, she pressed her palm against the glowing inscription. Energy soared, slashing through the shadows surrounding her. Brilliant light emanated from her touch, forcing the darkness to retract. A deafening roar of anguish accompanied the retreat as shadows writhed, unwilling to let go. Stay away from him, Jenna cried, pouring her heart into the altar. The inscription pulsed wildly, revealing ancient symbols in a radiant blaze. The creature snarled, its twisted face contorted with rage. Fool! It spat, lunging at her, a mass of shadows seeking to engulf Jenna whole. The light intensified, enveloping her, a shield against the encroaching darkness. Visions of the past surged around her, pulling at the seams of her mind. Every choice and every regret came crashing down. But one image stood strong, a memory of Ethan's eyes, full of love and belief. Help me, she screamed into the void, tears streaming down her face. Please, don't leave me. Time felt suspended, reality bruised and bending, as the creature lunged forward, determined to snuff out light's resilience. Would the truth she feared expose her further, or would it be the key to saving Ethan? For a moment, silence reigned before a piercing scream shattered the tranquility, echoing through the clearing. And in that silence, Jenna could feel shadows whispering secrets, each growing closer, urging her to turn. Away, will you save him, or will you let the shadows consume you both? The question lingered in the air, heavy and accusatory, leaving her heart racing as the darkness loomed ever closer. The scream faded, leaving a chilling quiet in its wake. Jenna could feel her heart pounding beneath layers of dread. Shadows coiled tighter, suffocating her spirit, each whisper pulling her deeper into the abyss. The pedestal loomed before her, unsettling and powerful, its inscription pulsating with a desperate kind of urgency. Jenna, fight it! Ethan's voice sliced through the haze, shaking her to the core. She turned her head, searching for him through a veil of darkness that danced with malice. The shadows pulsed, alive with unholy glee at their struggle. I'm coming, Ethan, she shouted, steeling herself against the pressure squeezing her chest. The creature shrieked, a cacophony of despair, as her defiance ignited a flicker of determination amidst the chaos. Foolish girl, it howled, its long fingers stretching towards her. You'll never escape your past. It will swallow you whole, just as it has consumed him. A visceral wave of fear coursed through Jenna. Images splintered in her mind, moments she wished to forget, faces she had never wanted to see again. Her mother's shadowed figure, a reflection of disappointment and despair, the exact moment she had turned her back on Ethan and love, the certainty of choice that had hurt them both. No more, she cried, clutching the altar as if it was her lifeline. Summoning her courage, she yelled into the dark, I won't let you take him. You're just a shadow. You can't kill the truth. A flash of brilliance erupted from the inscription. Light exploded around her, searing through the darkness, forcing the shadows to shiver. The creature's bared teeth revealed jagged, inky fangs as it recoiled, hissing with venomous rage. You think light will save you? I will show you the depths of your despair. It screeched, spiraling toward her. With the light blazing in her mind, Jenna felt an unfamiliar strength rising, the love for Ethan surging like a wild storm, relentless and true. No, she roared, flinging her arms wide, channeling every ounce of hope, every cherished memory. You're nothing compared to what we have. As if struck, the creature lurched backward, the shadows momentarily parting. The light enveloped Jenna, cascading waves of warmth that chased away the fear gnawing at her. She rushed forward, imploring the inscription, show me the way. Help me save him. Ethan's voice flickered back, faint yet full of love. Jenna, you're so close. Trust yourself. The shadows thrashed wildly, desperate to reclaim their hold. Anguished cries echoed through the night. They were battling not just for Ethan's life, but for Jenna's soul, a tangled web of choices and regrets. With each second stretching painfully, Jenna's resolve solidified. The dark entity clawed back, latching onto every doubt. Enough, she shouted, summoning her inner fire. You don't own me. In a flash, an explosion of light coursed through her veins, breaking the creature's grip, illuminating the entire clearing. The shadows shrieked, fractured, peeling away like old paint, revealing the truth hidden beneath. Memories fluttered like leaves taken by the wind, spiraling into the night. But then, a sudden realization crept into her mind, mounting with dread. What if saving Ethan meant confronting a truth far worse than the shadows? The creature loomed, disoriented but not defeated, hate dancing behind its eyes. Did you think this was just about him? It growled. Face this, Jenna. The darkness within will be what destroys you both. As she stood on the threshold, light flickering around her like fragile candle flames against the wind, a bone-chilling thought settled deep in her gut. What if the darkness was not an external force, but a part of her? Ethan, she screamed as despair threatened to crush her. Hold on. And with those words, the shadows converged again, harder than before, and her heart pounded with uncertainty. Would the truth they both feared be the final blow, or the strength they needed? The altar crackled around her as a confrontation loomed, and in the heart of darkness, she could almost feel Ethan slipping away. Will she uncover the truth within, or will the shadows drag them both into the black abyss? The unseen creature lurked, its laughter slicing through the suffocating tension in the air. Shadows danced around Jenna like deadly moths, hungry for her surrender. Join us, Jenna. Embrace your fear. Panic surged through her, but one flicker of determination ignited deep inside. It was Ethan's voice lingering in her mind, urging her on. I want to leave you, she shouted, her eyes fixed on the altar, the glow pulsing with an ancient energy that felt more alive than ever. In an instant, the beast lunged, its twisted form darting through the veil of darkness. But Jenna didn't flinch. No, she hurled, her body igniting with power, fueled by the memories they shared, the laughter, the brotherly love, the warmth of being together. This isn't how it ends. As she pressed her palm to the altar, the pulsating light flared, engulfing her in a cocoon of brilliance. The shadows recoiled, shrieking, their shrill voices bubbling with anger. You cannot resist us forever, they threatened. But she pressed on, heart racing, determined to break the cycle. Ethan, I'm here. She felt the warmth of the altar seep into her veins. The inscription was alive, a heart beating in rhythm with hers. This is our moment. Ethan's image flickered in the light, confused but hopeful. Jenna, please, you have to believe. With a roar, the dark entity lunged again, but with every ounce of strength she could summon, Jenna yelled, I choose hope. I choose love. The words exploded from her, reverberating in the clearing, shaking the very foundation of darkness around her. As if in response, the altar surged with light, showering them in healing warmth. Slowly, the shadows started to waver, their grip faltering as the light expanded, pushing against the encroaching despair. No, the creature bellowed, its monstrous form struck backward, twisting and contorting in its desperate attempt to maintain control. You're straying from the path. I'm creating my own, Jenna declared defiantly. The power coursed through her, illuminating hidden truths. She saw images flash by their childhood days, joyful moments, and those they had lost in shadows before. Each emotion lit her spirit, each memory a tapestry woven from shared joy. Fight me, then. The creature shrieked in frustration, and the shadows writhed. But Jenna felt something shift. A connection sparked. Ethan blinked, words forming on his lips. Fight. I will. With renewed resolve, Jenna closed her eyes, concentrating on the love they shared. It wrapped around her heart, a force stronger than fear. Together, Ethan. We fight together. With those words, shadows broke like rippling leaves in a storm, unfolding as Jenna plunged deeper, reaching for the light. It wasn't just a rescue. It was a reclamation of everything they had lost, of every friend that the darkness had taken. The inscription blazed brighter, sending a shockwave of warmth through her hand and lighting the clearing in a blaze of hope. Darkness cowered, swaying as the truth washed over it like a purifying tide. "Now," Jenna yelled, channeling every ounce of her willpower. "We are together. We face this." A final burst of light filled the clearing. Jenna felt the rush of it, pushing back the shadows, pulling Ethan with her as brilliance wrapped them in its embrace. Time slowed. As the darkness screamed, its grip finally shattered. The fractured shadows melted away, retreating like mist when dawn breaks. Jenna opened her eyes, and before her lay Ethan, the pulse of the altar steady and inviting. Jenna's voice was weak, but clear, filled with warmth and relief. Jenna rushed to his side, cradling him in her arms as he blinked away confusion. "You saved me." Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "We did this together." They embraced, the love pouring between them like a lifeline, tangible and true. The shadows faded into the night, leaving behind an echo of the turmoil they had endured. Jenna looked around. No grotesque forms remained, only a calm silence as the air lightened, filled with the scent of pine and earth. In that moment, everything felt whole again, stronger than the darkness that sought to consume them. As they stood at the altar, the light pulsing gently, Jenna felt the promise of hope enveloping them, a deep infusion of peace that had seemed impossible just moments before. "Let us go home," Jenna whispered, taking Ethan's hand. Together, they walked toward the edge of the clearing. Hand in hand, fortified by their bond, they stepped out of the shadows and back into the light. A new dawn waiting just ahead as they forged a way forward, united against any darkness that dared to threaten them. Please, if you felt the emotions surge through this story, then you need to subscribe now to keep up with our incredible journeys. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm so we can reach more fans like you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what just happened. And don't wait even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support and love for amazing storytelling.